Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And since it's that holiday time of year, we are going to be doing Christmas movies this week. And we are starting off with a viewer request for the 1994 film, The Ref. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the name of the dog that attacks Gus at the beginning of the film? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So at the beginning of our film, it's Christmas Eve, and we meet one of our main characters, Gus, who just so happens to be a professional thief. He's right in the middle of getting what could be a really big score, when all of a sudden the house alarm goes off, and he ends up in quite the precarious situation, which luckily he manages to escape. Unfortunately for Gus, his wheelman Murray has driven off out of fear, and now he has to run off on foot and figure out where in the world to go. Now, in another part of town, we meet our other two main characters, Caroline and Lloyd. They just so happen to be right in the middle of a marriage counseling meeting, which is proving to not be very helpful at all, as the two of them seem at odds at all times. Once their meeting is over, the two of them head back home, but they stop off at a grocery store, and this is where Gus meets Caroline, and ends up taking her hostage and going back into their vehicle, now taking the both of them hostage and asking for them to take him home. Gus does seem to figure out pretty quickly he chose the wrong people to take home. So once they get back, Gus decides it's best to tie up Caroline and Lloyd, even though that doesn't seem to stop their bickering at all. It's also around this time that the two of them remember that they are hosting a Christmas Eve dinner party with their family. The guests for this party include their son Jesse, who is coming home from military academy, Gary, who happens to be Lloyd's brother, along with his wife Connie and their two children, John and Mary, and of course Lloyd's overbearing mother, Rose. Gus does finally manage to get a hold of Murray, but Murray explains that it's going to be about an hour until he can get Gus out of town. With the dinner guests about to arrive any moment, Gus comes up with a plan. He's going to pretend to be Carolyn and Lloyd's therapist. For the most part, his plan seems to work, and he even gets to be part of some of their Christmas traditions. A very interesting dinner, some gift giving, and of course, an appearance by Santa. So with all of the authorities out looking for him, will Gus be able to wait for Murray? Or will this family cause him to completely snap? This movie was directed by Ted Dem. The original working title for this film is Hostile Hostages, which is also how the movie appears in different countries. Denis Leary, who does a great job as Gus in this film, was actually chosen to be a part of this due to the fact that he had the previous experience with Ted Dem, as Dem directed his special No Cure for Cancer. Both Judy Davis and Kevin Spacey did such a great job as a miserable married couple. This also wouldn't be the only time the actors would play characters that were in a failed marriage. Directly before this film, Judy Davis was actually in a movie called Husbands and Wives, where she was also in a failed marriage. And only 5 years after this film, Kevin Spacey would famously play a character who was also in a failed marriage in American Beauty. What's especially funny with that film and this film is that in this film, his wife is Caroline, and in that one, it's Carolyn. This movie was actually the film debut of J.K. Simmons. Another actor who makes a brief cameo in this film is B.D. Wong as the character of Dr. Wong. John Scurdy, who plays Lieutenant Steve Milford in this film, would actually go on to play another lieutenant, Lieutenant Kenneth Lou Shea, in Rescue Me, which was also alongside Denis Leary. Although they come close to it a few times throughout the film, the characters of Caroline and Lloyd never actually kiss in the film. A little bit along a similar path, Gus has a gun throughout the film, but only shoots it once, and it's at the smoke detector. When Leary's character of Gus says, "Lady, your husband ain't dead, he's hiding," this is actually a direct quote from a classic Abbott and Costello routine that appeared in the film Society. The original ending of the film had Gus getting caught or turning himself in to the cops. This was to show Jesse that a life of crime leads nowhere. Test audiences absolutely hated this, and that's why it doesn't show up in the final film. So when it comes to the film The Ref, I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies, and hopefully it's one of yours. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Now, if you're looking for films that feel similar to this one, recommendations I would give would be The Ice Harvest, Trapped in Paradise, Cadillac Man, and What About Bob? Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, What is the name of the dog that attacks Gus at the beginning of the film? It is revealed by Caroline that the dog that attacked Gus is named Cannibal. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.